parts of the book which you might not have read yet. But this is like I start the book out with a quote from, well, not directly to start, but a quote from Ursula K. Le Guin, excuse me, where she talks about becoming realists of a larger reality. And I play around with that idea a lot throughout the book, where there's always this larger reality around that where our idea of what is real is often channeled and constructed very often through capitalist means. You look at Instagram and it's like, wow, that person is having a great life. It's like, no, they took 40 photos to get to that photo that looks amazing, And so I play around with that a lot, and especially because very often when the right or non-political or centrist people or whatever say, hey, I saw this problem here, like the left was doing this. Oftentimes the left says, no, we're not. That's never happened, that's made up. There's a lot of dishonesty about it, because a lot of times we don't want to admit, oh, yeah, actually that happens. And so I suggest that being a realist of a larger reality is like, hey, let's admit how many times we fuck this up. And say, hey, I wish that weren't happening, but that's not how I feel about those things. And can we go back to trying to do something that will better your material conditions? Because that's what the left, I think, always should come back to. Like, how do we make your life better? And then so at the end, like the last section is I'll start here. So it's the subtitle is Being Faithful Realists. So actually, I guess I have to go back a little. I'm sorry, I should have. To get to this point, we'll need to reorient radical politics away from identity and instead back towards material concerns. What that might look like isn't very hard to imagine, as it's what the left has already been in many places and at many times throughout history. While easy to imagine, however, it may be first a bit difficult to implement, because it will require significant changes in the way we talk about what is possible through political action, and especially a harsh realism about our previous mistakes. Instead of denying that those things happened, the best and most honest path is to admit that they did, and then to figure out if the theories behind those things should be discarded as well. Even if we do not collectively reach this conclusion, I'll skip that paragraph. Becoming faithful realists requires us also to look soberly at the way radical political discourse occurs now. Social media is a cesspool of toxic political discussions, and we must admit that, yes, radicals say and do some very awful things online. Being honest about such behavior, rather than denying it, would also serve to take away a powerful weapon we have given right-aligned critics through our silence and denial. Currently, they are able to position themselves as telling the truth that leftists deny, and as revealing excesses and absurdities which we refuse to address. What if, instead of denying such things, we nodded in agreement? Yes, you're right, this happens, we might say, and it's awful, but those people don't speak for me. And now let's talk about getting you access to healthcare. And then I'm gonna skip, skip a little bit more. Sorry. I'll just read this last section. And what is that one? I'm sorry. I barely remember this book. Okay, here we go. So the very end, and there's an esoteric thing that I mentioned throughout this as well, which is the sense of having multiple selves. In animism, well, there is no such thing as a true self. We have multiple selves. Like I am, I'm a husband and I'm a brother, and I'm also a writer. Like those are three selves. None of those is the true self, but oftentimes within the Christian legacy, then filtered through Descartes and all of the rest of this, we have this idea that there is one true person, one true me that I need to conform to. I need to make this. And I say, hey, actually, what if we start embracing the idea that there are actually multiple selves, and we can be all of those things, and we don't always need to be at war with each other. And then so I say embracing a sense of multiple selves would also help solve the deadlock of identity where intersectionality has failed. This is a solution which both the cyborg and the werewolf point to. Those are two of the monsters I mentioned. Humans are never just one thing, but are rather composed also of other existences and inhabit other realms. We are social, political, economic, and also natural beings, as well as spiritual, cultural, and many other kinds of being as well. We cannot be reduced to one identity, nor even a discrete set of intersecting identities. There is always something of us that cannot be defined. What we all are, past that multitude of identities, is human. Bodies who labor, who desire, who need, who create, and who are, in the end, much more like each other than different. This is the only place leftist politics can start from: our shared needs, our common material conditions, the exploitation of our labor, and the political control over our existence as bodies. A politics of bodies is a materialist politics, but is also a kind of anti-politics. Giorgio Agamben's lament that all our lives are now subject to the realm of the political, that there is no longer any real distinction between the public and private self, need not be a funeral dirge. Resisting the politicization of every part of life might seem like the most difficult task of all, but it's also the most important. And it's easier than you might think, because this is what friendship is. Friendships, especially the strongest ones, are rarely ever forged upon political ideas or identitarian thinking. We befriend each other not just despite our differences, but often because of them. The best friends are the ones who refuse to always say what you want to hear, and who rather say what you most need to hear. They reflect back not our idealized versions of ourselves, but glimpses of the largest reality of who we really are to them and to the world. The greatest friends I've had were the ones who never demanded I think like them, and who never demanded I hate others. It's unfortunately taken me a long time to identify and to end friendships based on coercion and manipulation, all of which turned out to have been founded upon the false premises of political conformity. In other words, they were more like gangs than friendships. I am not alone in this, I am sure. Perhaps this is one of the reasons you have been reading this book. Perhaps you, too, have seen people you thought were friends turn upon you or upon others in order to be good social justice activists. Maybe you did this to others just as I did. Perhaps you found, like I did, that though you thought you were fighting monsters, you were becoming one yourself. Perhaps, like me, you found that when you thought we were fighting capitalism, we were only fighting each other. Friendships that resist the politicization of everyday life are where we learn how to understand each other beyond all the political rhetoric that reduces us to identities. It's from such friendships that I finally understood how my political views were shaped more by idealism and beliefs than by physical reality, or even my own material conditions and observations. Such friendships showed me how to speak as a human rather than an identity, and how to find commonalities grounded not in political conformity, but rather in shared human struggle. If we are ever to become something more than hypocrites, actors in political dramas we have little control over, internally divided between our beliefs and our actions, we must embrace this kind of friendship again. We are many selves and many beings, and we are also human. That human part is where we start from, where friendships form and relationships are made. Past the borders of the political is the realm of monsters, monsters who look remarkably like us.
Okay. Right, thanks very much everyone. I know you're going to the pub at some point. If you want to, I guess we're okay to stay for a little bit and everybody should, of course. peruse this beautiful books and buy some books and so on. So I'll move this chair out of the way and get out of the way. Thanks very much for attending, and thanks very much to Rhyd as well for that extraordinarily insightful set of observations and that beautiful reading. Thanks very much, everybody.